In this video, we are going to look at section A of Biology paper 2 for 2021 GCE. Now let's look at the first question. So under first question here, we have the diagram. Below is an incomplete reaction for a certain characteristic of living things. So here we have one of the characteristics that we need to know in biology. And these characteristics there are about 7 characteristics. Now one of these characteristics is illustrated from this equation. Now let's look at this equation. So here we can see that we have this reactant F which reacted with oxygen, then it gave us the products carbon dioxide, water plus NH. Now from this equation we can see that here we are looking at the breaking down, since this F are broken down into carbon dioxide, water and NH in the presence of oxygen. Now for us to answer the first question, identify substance F. So what substance can react with oxygen to give us the mentioned product? So this is glucose. Then Roman number 2, what characteristic of living things is illustrated by the reaction? So whenever you see a reaction between glucose and oxygen, whereby forming the products such as carbon dioxide, water and NH, this reaction is respiration. So respiration is just defined as the process by which glucose is broken down to form carbon dioxide, water and NH in the presence of oxygen. Now we can move on to B, Roman number 1. Which characteristic of living things produces substance F? So substance F is glucose. Glucose is produced by the synthesis of living things. So for us to specify, we can say photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is the process in which glucose is formed. Then for B, Roman number 2, name 3 uses of NH in living things. So 3 uses of NH. NH can be used for 1, for locomotion in animals. For an animal to move from one position to another position, it needs NH. Then another use of NH is for reproduction. For living organisms to reproduce, NH must be there, because energy is defined as the ability to do work. So all these activities that I'm writing down here requires, there is a certain work that should be done, even for growth. So as long as such a particular activity has a work in it, therefore NH is required. Now let's move on to question C, Roman number 1. What type of metabolic reaction is illustrated in the diagram above? So we only have 2 types of metabolic reactions that we look at. We have anabolism and catabolism. So among the 2, we were trying to identify these 2. Now catabolism deals with the breaking down, where you have a large molecule, then you break it down to form smaller one. Then anabolism deals with now building up. You have small molecules, 2 or more, as long as you combine them where you build a large molecule, that is anabolism. So from this reaction given here, are we breaking down or are we building up? So you can see that we are breaking down this glucose. So this reaction here is catabolism. Now we can move on to C, Roman number 2. State 1 characteristic of living things which does not take place throughout the life of a living thing. So here we have reproduction. So in reproduction has a certain stage where it ends. Like for human beings, especially in women, it ends at the age of 45 to 50. That's the approximate, or that's the average age where most women stops reproducing. Okay, now let's move on to question 2. Figure 2 shows the stages involved in an enzyme catalyzed reaction inside cells of a living body. Now let's study this. We have the first stage 1, where we have two substances. On the left side we have substance G and H. Then we also have this substance I. Then on stage 2 we can see that the substance G and H have binded with the substance I. Then after this stage 3 we can now see that the two G and H have made one large molecule. Then for substance I, we can see that we still have the same substance with the same shape. Now let's look at the first question A from stage 1 in figure 2. Identify the Roman number 1 enzyme. So enzyme can be identified. We need to look at the substance that never changed its shape. So it is substance I. Then substrate G and H. Okay, Roman number 2. Which stage shows the enzyme substrate complex? So the enzyme substrate complex, it's a stage where the substrates have binded with the enzyme. So this is stage 2. We can see the combination or the connection between these three substances. So we have stage 2. Now for Roman number 2 of question B, label the active site on the enzyme on figure 2. So the active site, it is the region on the enzyme where the substrate meet with the enzyme. So this represent the active sites. So these two regions here. Okay, so now we can move on to C, Roman number 1. What type of metabolic reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme in figure 2? So from the previous question, the first question, we said kata, breakdown, then ana, builds up. So let's look at what happened. So from the first stage, substance G and H were separately. Then after this certain reaction on stage 3, we can see the connection between substance G and H. So these two have combined with a certain bond to make this large molecule. So here we are looking at anabolism. It's a building up. They have combined. So that's a key point whenever you're looking at kata and ana. So you just ask yourself, is it breaking down or building up? Okay, now let's move on to question C, Roman number 2. Name a region in the human body where such a metabolic reaction in C1 above can occur. So like glycogenesis, like where the glucose is converted into glycogen. So this occurs in the liver. That is one of the example we can give for anabolism. So the liver can be as our example. Then in Roman number 3, state the general term used to refer to enzymes that work inside cells. So there are enzymes that works outside the cell and those that works inside the cell. So our point is we are trying to give the special name given to those that works inside. So here it is intracellular. So intracellular enzymes. So the word intra means inside. Outra means outside. So that's a key point. Or extracellular. So that is outside. Now let's look at question D. Describe two industrial application of enzymes. So here we are looking at what are the uses of enzymes in industry. So number 1, enzymes can be used for for brewing, like making alcohol. So for brewing, and also for making soaps, like for saponification, soaps. Then also for baking, enzymes can also be used during baking. So now let's move on to question 3. Figure 3 shows parts of an organism of a plant, an organ, sorry, of a plant. Then this organ, we can see the structures. We have structure G, H, I, and J up to K. Okay, so now let's look at the first question, Roman number 1. Identify the structures G and K. So here, our G, we are looking at the upper party. So this is our epidermis or epidermal cell. So we have the epidermis. Then our K down here, this is guard cell. Or these are guard cells. Then Roman number 2, state one's structural difference between structures G and J. So in terms of, we are looking at not functioning but structure. So we can say guard cells. Guard cells are more irregular in shape than epidermal cell. So what this means in terms of the structure, the cells that forms this structure G, we can see that they have they have like a bean shaped kind of shape. So they are more irregular in terms of shape than the epidermal. So the epidermal, they are more of regular in terms of shape. Now question B, identify the plant organ in figure 3. So which organ has parts like palisade, guard cells, spongy, epidermis? So this is a leaf. So a leaf is an organ. Then C1, in which labeled region in figure 3 is the rate of photosynthesis highest? So it's region H. Then we have to defend our answer, give a reason for answer, because there are more chloroplasts in region H, and we know the function of these chloroplasts. This is where photosynthesis occurs. So we can say there are more chloroplasts in region H. So that's the reason. Then D, explain why the arrangement of cells in the region labeled I is important for photosynthesis. So let's look at the region labeled I. So here we can see how these cells are arranged. So they are arranged whereby we have some spaces in between. So these spaces have functions that they play during photosynthesis. Now let's look at some of the requirements for photosynthesis. For photosynthesis to occur, we need gases like carbon dioxide is an essential element for this reaction. So we need spaces where these gases must diffuse in. And also after the reaction has taken place, oxygen is given out. So for it to be moved through the stomata, we need to have these spaces. So the reason we have these spaces under this is the spongy region. So under the spongy region, there are spaces, and the reason for these spaces is just for easy movement of gases and water vapor. So we can say for is movement of gases and water vapor. So also for easy diffusion, so we can have a picture in mind. It's hard for a gas or a substance to move in a region where there are no spaces. Like in a region H, we can see that these cells are closely packed, there are no spaces. So we need some spaces for easy movement and also for easy diffusion process. Okay, now we can move on to question 4. Figure 4 shows a human elbow joint in longitudinal section. Then we will have this structure figure 4 with unknown structures A, B, C, D, up to E. Now first question A, name the parts labeled A, B, and C. So if you can't see these clearly, I recommend that you use the actual paper for this biology. So let's look at so according to my diagram, A is the cartilage. So if this is a bone, we have the bone, the cartilage is just these materials or the meat kind of structure that covers the end of a bone to prevent the wearing or the friction between the two moving bones. Then for B we will have synovial membrane. Then inside the synovial membrane we have the synovial fluid, which lubricates the joint, which makes it easy for the bones to move on the joint. Then for C, structure C, we have ligaments. Now ligaments, these are just substances that connects the two bones on the joint, thus preventing the dislocation. So let's give now the functions. So give one function for each part in A. So A is cartilage, so to prevent friction, between two bones. Then synovial membrane to produce synovial fluid. Then for C ligament to hold bones on the joint, thus prevents dislocation. So we may have pictures like if you are carrying an heavy object. So what makes your bones not to move from the joint? Like what prevents your bones from dislocating are these ligaments. Now let's move on to question C, Roman number 1. Which part D or E can be affected by cancer of the bone? So cancer is a condition where there is over multiplication of cells on a given region. So from E and D, which one? So we can say we have part D. Part E. So then remember to name the part affected by cancer of the bone in C above. So these are spongy. So spongy gives us the region where there is over multiplication of cells, where we are expecting to have the cell division, and this cell division may result in over-multiplication, which can give us this condition of cancer cell. Now for Roman number 2, for D, name the type of joint shown in figure 4 above. So for this joint, we are given its elbow joint. So what type of joint is elbow joint? So this is a hinge joint. It's a joint that allows movement in one plane only. Okay, now let's move on to question 5A, Roman number 1. Name 2 traits in plants which show discontinuous variation, which shows discontinuous variation. Okay, number 1, type of fruits. Then number 2, size and the shape of the leaves. Then for Roman number 2, state 2 factors which cause variation in animals. So 2 factors which cause variation in animals. So factors like mutation. So mutation can cause variation in animals. Then apart from variation, we also have environmental factors. Environmental factors also affect. So environmental factors such as temperature may cause variation. Now let's look at question B, the last question for section A. In humans, black hair is dominant over blonde hair. Using letters B, capital letter B and small letter b, show using a genetic diagram why a male parent with black hair had some children with black hair and other children with blonde hair with his wife who had the blonde hair. Okay, now first we need to think here. So the first one, we have the condition that black is dominant. So black is dominant. So if they say black is dominant, it means that for these 2 letters, the capital letter B represent the dominant. Then for the blonde is denoted by the small letter b. Now what this means that the blonde, the small letter b, the gene for blonde hair is suppressed whenever it is with the capital letter B, or the black is dominating this blonde hair. So for blonde hair to be expressed, we need to have the homozygous kind of arrangement. Now let's look at this. So we need to think. We are told that the wife had blondie hair. So let's look at the husband here. Then we also have this wife. Now, since these 2 had a mixture, their children, some of their children had the black hair and others had the blonde hair. The 2 parents, one was heterozygous and the other one was homozygous. So now which one was heterozygous? Now for the wife was had the blonde hair. So this one was homozygous. Since we are saying that for a person to have a blonde hair, that person needs to have the same letters. And since these 2 are recessive, blonde is recessive, we are going to have the same letters. Now for the husband must be a carrier, so we need to have 1 capital letter and 1 small letter. So the husband had the phenotype was black, but the husband has a carrier of having a child with a blondie hair. So these are what we call the genotype of F1. Then we are going to separate these. We have this. So after separating these, we have gametes of P1, first parental generations. Then we can do the crossing. So this child here has this one who is black, since we have this capital letter B which is dominating the small letter b. Okay, let's look at this one. Then also here we have heterozygous for black. Then we can have homozygous. So this is the blonde hair, another blondie hair. So these are known as genotype of F1. So we can see that there are two chances for each characteristic. There is a 50% having a child with black hair, and another, the other 50% represents having a child with the blonde hair. So this is how we can construct or make a genetic diagram to illustrate what happened. So we'll end for this question. Then for section B, I will start making videos specifically for sections such as B. Now, if you are maybe new to this channel, please, I need your support by subscribing to my channel, share with friends and families, then comment. I need your comments, and also like the video, and just don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you're notified as soon as I post new video. That's it. Thanks for watching.